What's up, guys? I'm Joe. Today I'm talking about the new, but not actually so new, album from Seat Headrest, Twin Fantasy. So Seat Headrest are back with a re-recording, reworking of Will Toledo's kind of cult classic, Twin Fantasy, which is an album that was released back in I think 2011 on Bandcamp. And it's one that, Will Toledo did just in his room on his laptop. And he was really able to propel himself towards a record deal based on the kind of, like I said, cult following this album had gained. He had a number of albums done before that, but this one really kind of cemented him in the underground kind of indie scene. But from there, as he went forward, he just kept making new music. I'm someone who's relatively new to the band. They caught my attention, as I'm sure they did with a lot of people, with 2016's Teens of Denial, which is a great record and has all sorts of elements of classic rock and garage rock and, pop-leaning hooks. Just all around a really solid album. So I was really interested to hear a more polished version of Twin Fantasy. That album really is rough around the edges, obviously now feels like demos. For this one, I do like that this one, it doesn't go too overboard with giving you a polished version. Certainly it's a huge improvement on the album sonically, but the band pays homage to those lo-fi sounds of the original. So its character really isn't lost in these re-recordings, and if anything, the re-recordings allows songs to shine a lot more, in my opinion, than they had on the original. Two standouts for me are actually some of these really longer tracks. It's something that I liked about Teens of Denial. When you're in the right kind of mood for it, the longer tracks that the band does you can just get lost in them. And even so, some of these longer tracks are actually even a little bit longer. The same can be said about a lot of the other tracks on here. The band kind of jams things out a little bit more. Look at a song like Beach, Life and Death, which kind of almost feels like three songs put together. There's three kind of different types of movements. But I like that they're able to play out enough that, like I said, you kind of get lost in the experience of the song. The same can be said about a song like Famous Prophets. I really like the kind of rise and fall that this song does. And it's something that Toledo employs on a lot of his songs. And it's definitely a great style, is where, like I said, things will build and then they'll explode with, heavy, crunchy guitars, harsher, louder vocals. Nonetheless, usually pretty hooky, catchy melodies that will stick with you, before eventually, restraining itself back, redoing the build again, especially on these, 10, 14-minute songs. It definitely makes the length worth it, in my opinion. It really takes you on a journey. You can get lost in the tracks. Some great examples on here of Toledo's kind of signature tongue-in-cheek type of lyrics. One that I find actually particularly funny is Bodies. I like the part about, is this going to be the chorus? No, not yet. You have to build to it. It'll be even better that way. Which speaks to that sort of style that he employs. He really builds things up, and when they do come to fruition, it's such a energetic, exciting moment. There's some songs on here that have just immense, catchy hooks on them. Cute Thing being one of my favorites on the album. This is one of those songs that, while it definitely sounds more polished than its counterpart from the previous album, it nonetheless sounds grungy, garagey, these distorted guitars, and, you have such a catchy chorus, but also just such a wave of all these instrumentals going on. Just makes for a really great listen. And Stop Smoking, We Love You. I love this song. It's just, it's so simple. There's not a lot to it. You get the obvious message here, but it's so catchy. The vocal lines will just get stuck in your head and never leave, and I love the kind of acoustic guitar. I love the chord progression going on here. Just short and sweet, and just a great song. The opening track, My Boy, really comes alive on this re-recorded version. And once the song finally builds, it just feels like it's stadium-sized. Nervous Young and Humans, it's definitely an interesting song, and one that really draws you in very intently because of that last half of it being an almost kind of spoken word part, very low in the mix. And you're just talking about some pretty interesting things. A lot of these lyrics on this album, it kind of feels like opening up a time capsule, because it's an album that he did back in 2011, back in his room, and kind of revisiting it must have been a really fun experience. But that, that idea of kind of looking back comes out on here, especially if you're a teenager, you can relate to it. If you're a little bit older, you can relate back to it in a way, which I find to be particularly interesting about the album. Another great one I feel like you can really just get lost in is High to Death. The way those kind of, keys or synthesizers work to add this very psychedelic texture to the song is just really great. So overall, I think, the re-recording of this project was a huge success. It's one that fans have been, really asking for. The band did one song a while back, and it just, really set everything in motion that this was going to happen. And, now that's come out, everyone seems to be pretty pleased with it. And like I said, it was definitely something that I think was worth doing. So I'm feeling like a strong 4 out of 5 on this one. Let me know what you think of the album in the comments, whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong. And as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.